The photograph appeared on my phone during a completely unremarkable Tuesday afternoon, while I was organizing the laundry room and planning dinner. My sister sent it without a word, a random attachment clearly intended for a different recipient on her contact list. I tapped the screen absent-mindedly, and within a fraction of a second, my entire 8-year marriage dissolved into a beautifully orchestrated deception. The image showed my husband beaming with pride while cradling two tiny newborn infants, and the caption beneath the picture read that Daddy loves them both so much. I did not scream or break down into tears, but instead, a profound and permanent stillness settled over my entire being as I stared at the screen. My name is Nora Vance. I am 38 years old, and I spent nearly a decade believing that absolute patience would eventually fix our broken family goals. My professional background is in forensic accounting, which means I earn a living by uncovering the microscopic financial discrepancies that people assume will remain hidden forever. I spent years training myself to value cold evidence over raw human emotion, never realizing I would eventually need those exact diagnostic tools in my own household. Arthur and I married when I reached my 30th birthday, drawn to his infectious ambition and his magnetic ability to command any room he entered. He was the co-owner of a rapidly expanding shipping enterprise, and watching him construct that business from the ground up was utterly mesmerizing. Our early years were filled with endless conversations about the children we would raise, the names we preferred, and the quiet neighborhood where we would build our forever home. It all felt completely predestined, like a natural law of the universe that would surely manifest for us without much struggle. The reality was incredibly harsh, and our dreams slipped away through years of negative tests and increasingly draining clinical appointments. We endured multiple rounds of specialized fertility treatments, painful hormone injections that left dark bruises across my abdomen, and shirts chosen specifically to hide my changing body. We suffered through 3 distinct miscarriages, each loss reducing our dreams to a brief heartbeat on a medical monitor before fading into absolute silence. I carried that heavy grief in total isolation, mostly because Arthur always seemed to bounce back from the disappointment much faster than I could. During those long nights of insomnia, I would mentally audit our tragedy the same way I analyzed fraudulent corporate spreadsheets at my office. I constantly searched for the exact moment our plans collapsed, wondering what subtle clues I had overlooked or what choices I could have changed. I blamed my stressful career, my physical health, and even casual glasses of wine I enjoyed before knowing a pregnancy had begun. I directed my anger at absolutely everything except the actual truth, simply because the reality of my marriage was completely hidden from my view. Through every single heartbreak, Arthur held my hand in those sterile clinic waiting rooms, repeating the exact same comforting phrases like a protective mantra. He constantly promised that we would survive the ordeal together, and I trusted his words with the unquestioning faith of someone who could not conceive of an alternative. My younger sister Chloe was equally present in our lives, offering warm embraces, home-cooked meals, and late-night phone calls whenever I felt overwhelmed. She frequently told me how much she respected my emotional resilience, never allowing me to see that her intense admiration was actually deeply rooted jealousy. The afternoon the message arrived, I had just concluded a routine video conference with a regular corporate client, completely unaware that my life was about to fracture. The late autumn sunlight was hitting the kitchen countertops at a sharp angle, casting long shadows across the linoleum floor right before my phone vibrated. I looked down expecting a work notification, but found my husband looking at those 2 infants with an expression of pure, unadulterated devotion. It was the exact same face that, just 3 weeks prior, had urged me to undergo one final round of painful reproductive therapy. Chloe called my number mere seconds after the photograph landed in my message inbox, and I answered the line without uttering a single syllable. Her voice was trembling uncontrollably as she stammered an apology, claiming she never intended for me to discover the situation in such a chaotic manner. I immediately severed the connection without demanding an explanation, because my professional training had taught me exactly how to handle a massive structural deception. When you detect the first major discrepancy in a system, you never alert the target, but instead, you quietly gather the documentation. I opened my laptop immediately and retained a prominent local family law specialist named Julian Brooks, securing his very first available appointment for the following morning. Sitting in his quiet office surrounded by the scent of rich mahogany and expensive stationery, I signed the initial paperwork to dissolve my marriage. My hand remained perfectly steady as the pen moved across the parchment, a detail that surprised me given the magnitude of the betrayal. I returned home that evening and prepared dinner in total silence, knowing I was already several moves ahead of my husband and sister. The next morning, I initiated my private investigation by carefully reviewing our historical banking records, searching for the physical trail that hidden relationships always leave behind. Arthur Tobacco believed his tracks were entirely covered, but his immense confidence had made him incredibly sloppy with corporate accounts and shared digital spaces. I quickly discovered multiple recurring charges at a boutique hotel located in a quiet municipality, where neither of us had any legitimate business reason to visit. The dates of those weekend getaways aligned perfectly with the exact weeks I was home recovering from invasive fertility procedures. My investigation deepened when I managed to access an ancient, forgotten digital storage folder that Arthur had neglected to disconnect from my primary computer. The archive contained nearly 3 years of hidden documentation, including candid snapshots of Chloe standing entirely too close to my husband at corporate celebrations. There were even coastal vacation photographs framed against tropical backdrops that were supposed to be standard, solitary business trips to landlocked Midwestern states. They had not been masterfully deceptive. They had simply assumed that my complete trust meant I would never bother to look beneath the surface. A few days later, my phone displayed a call from Arthur's mother, Evelyn, a woman with whom I had always shared a deeply affectionate relationship. Her voice sounded incredibly fragile and thin, completely devoid of the vibrant energy she usually possessed when discussing her suburban garden. She was weeping openly on the line, begging me not to confront Arthur with the information I had uncovered regarding his secret life. As I listened to her unravel, a chilling realization washed over me, suggesting that the true scope of this family secret extended far deeper than a simple extramarital affair. We agreed to meet at a quiet cafe the following morning, where Evelyn sat with her hands gripping her porcelain mug so tightly her skin turned white. She confessed that her silence had haunted her for 8 years, explaining that a misdirected medical report had arrived at her home near the start of our marriage. She had opened the document by mistake and discovered that the severe fertility barriers we faced were entirely rooted in Arthur's genetic profile, not mine. In a panic to protect her son's fragile ego, she had begged our physician, Dr. Collins, to remain silent while letting me shoulder the blame. I drove straight to Dr. Collins's private practice that afternoon, demanding to see the original physical archive from our years of reproductive testing. The physician handed over the documents with an expression of profound professional regret, confirming that Arthur's mother had actively manipulated the flow of clinical data. Reading the explicit laboratory findings with my own eyes, the weight of 8 years of unwarranted self-reproach completely vanished from my conscience. The agonizing procedures, the late-night apologies, and the deep sense of personal inadequacy had never belonged to me. They were fabrications sustained by his mother's frantic secrecy. The ultimate confrontation occurred a week later at Evelyn's home, where Arthur and Chloe arrived carrying the newborn twins, expecting a joyful family introduction. I watched from the shadows as Evelyn completely broke down at the sight of the infants, unable to maintain the deception any longer. She looked at her son and revealed the existence of the hidden medical records, throwing the entire room into absolute chaos. If Arthur was entirely sterile, the children Chloe held in her arms could not possibly be his, meaning their secret relationship was built on a foundation of mutual deception. Arthur arrived at my house later that evening, completely broken and clutching the crinkled medical reports his mother had kept locked away for nearly a decade. He wept openly on my porch, attempting to shift the blame to his mother's ancient interference while insisting he never would have strayed if he knew the truth. I looked at his ruined expression and felt nothing but a distant sense of finality, refusing to let his sudden enlightenment erase his choices. The biological reality did not excuse the fact that he chose to betray his wife with her own sister the moment things became difficult. The final legal proceedings were completed 3 weeks later in a quiet municipal courthouse, where the dissolution of our marriage was made officially final. Chloe had already vanished to a neighboring state with the children, unable to face the public fallout of her exposed secrets and shattered illusions. I walked out into the bright morning air feeling completely unburdened, finally disconnected from the false narratives that had dictated my entire adult existence. I chose to use my divorce settlement to establish a foundation that assists couples navigating reproductive health with total clinical transparency, ensuring no one else carries unearned shame. If you have stayed with me through this entire journey, I want you to share your perspective on this situation in the section below. Tell me whether you believe Nora can ever truly rebuild her trust in people, or if her new independence is exactly what she needs to thrive. Remember to subscribe to the channel so you never miss our deep narrative breakdowns, and let me know the city you are watching from tonight.